Hello everyone, welcome back to the Plunder Den. In this week's episode, we're going to build in some frost-covered fortifications. So this project was brought on really from the snow terrain that I built in the last episode. I really just want to explore that further, and they're kind of fortifications that are covered in frost, so they got a little bit of snow. So what we learned from the last episode, we're going to carry into this episode, but we're going to expand on it and do a few things. I wanted to add structures into it. The influence of these structures is all sorts of things. It kind of leans a little more maybe to the fantasy side, but definitely could be used for your historical games. Could be used for Fire on the Frontier. Could be used for Dungeons and Dragons, maybe Frostgrave, whatever. Well, it could be used for a wide range of games, and that's really another theme of this channel is universal terrain that you could pretty well use for anything. So I guess the best thing is to just look at it, and I can explain some of the features and some of the influences I had on this. So this is, I've actually 3 pieces, and 2 are similar. This is kind of like a tower, because it's got a staircase to get up in the top, and it's got kind of it's covered on 3 sides. But it's sitting on some timbers, with obviously these spikes, so it's like a cheval de frise, similar, but also it's kind of like a gabion because it's filled with stones inside here. They would have used a weaved basket, so this is kind of, a stretch on that, but it's a play on that. So just a easy fortification. They just threw a bunch of stones and some timbers together, and then put like a bit of a tower on top. So that's, and you can see that I spent a lot of time painting this to make it look like there's frost on here. And obviously we used our snow technique that we did in the previous episode. So that's the one piece. I'll just show you quickly the second one. It's very similar. So I get another kind of like a wall piece here. Wall / tower, whatever you want to use it for. But it's kind of something you just slap anywhere on the table, right? And you have some kind of fortification if you want to use. But I wanted to do kind of a gateway. So this one's a little more elaborate than the other 2. But we have a gateway in here. Similar things, just got 2 of these, same, filled with stones, like a timber fort. You got 2 staircases on the back here, and you just kind of got an opening. I didn't put a door on it. I kind of like it just open like this, actually, because maybe it's kind of a used fortification. Maybe it's a bit of a ruined one, and there's no door left. It's just kind of open. So I just left it like this. I can imagine guards in the guard tower and such, but definitely this is, like I said, a wide range of influences to make this. This has even got a bit of a Celtic feel to it, but really wanted to stay on that snow terrain theme, and I figured these timbers would fit in nicely with that. All right, so that's kind of what we got going on for this episode. That's what we're going to be building in this episode. All right, if you guys like what we're doing here in the Plunder Den, make sure you smash that like button and consider subscribing to the Plunder Den and get first-hand information when I do these kind of projects. All right, everyone, let's get down to the table. Let's start doing some painting, and let's start doing some crafting. All right, so let's start off looking at what we're going to need for this project. So this is just a broom end that I got at the dollar store for like $3. I'm going to use this ends of it for some grass, some tall grass. I plan on using the rest of it for something else, so it's not going to go to waste, but for this project, we're going to only need the ends. This is just some that filler I was talking about for the snow. Well, in the same section in Michael's, they have these little black small stones, which could be used for rubble and all sorts of stuff, but I'm going to use a little bit of that in this project. And this is that white filler sand I was talking about. I got this at Michael's. This is what I use for the snow effect, and it works really good. So I'm going to keep on using that for my snow. DAP drywall compound. This is the stuff that is pink and dries white. We got some willow sticks, if I can get it over here. This is willow fencing, and I've used this a lot on the channel. Now, if you don't have any willow fencing, I know some people are having trouble finding it. You could use dowels, and you just have to texture the outside of it to make it look a little odd shaped. It's just a lot easier with the willow fence. This is the coffee stir sticks, and I got these from Amazon, and I mentioned in the last episode, they actually have really good texture to them. You can get 1,000 at a time, and I'm just showing you some dowels that you can use instead. Uh, and then, of course, balsa wood, different shaped balsa wood. We got a dollar store foam board. We got our regular packing foam, and we got some insulation foam. So that's all we're going to use for this project. All right, so I started off by cutting out, as I always do, some dollar store foam board to make my bases. So I knew I wanted to make 2 walls and kind of like a gateway entranceway for this project. So I kind of made a circular shape for the gate because it's going to be a little bit wider. And then I had 2 longer pieces for the wall here. I just used that X-Acto blade to cut it out. I just basically sketched it out with a pencil. And then we're going to start off by sealing them in right away with the multi-surface black craft paint by Folk Art. And we're just going to paint both sides and let that harden so there's no warping of any kind. So you can see that they're really good shape now. They're nice and flat. And once it's sealed in, it's easy to work with. And again, you could use hardboard or other things that you don't have to use this dollar store foam board, but I just find it easier. I like the lightweight, especially since I'm going to add drywall compound to it. So then I grabbed the willow fencing, and again, if you don't have the willow fencing, you'll have to use dowels, but it'll take quite a few dowels, and willow fences is a lot cheaper, unless you can find it in bulk somewhere. But anyways, I'm going to make these 2 rectangles and 2 squares, and kind of these are what I was talking about, similar to a gabion. We were just going to build the bases first, and I just used some white tacky glue to glue them in place. Waited till they kind of were stuck pretty good. And then I just made a mixture of that regular sand actually in these stones, just kind of like a filler on the bottom. You're actually not going to really see a whole lot of this, but just in case you could see a little bit, it's like super detailed, so I put this as a base. I'm going to add some stones on top of it, which we're going to cut out of insulation foam. So I just cut it into strips like this and cut them into little small rectangles, cut them in half. And then I actually did cut them all by hand and just cut the angles off everything and kind of make it like this shape. Once that's done, then I stick it in the coffee tin here and with rocks about 4 minutes and shake them up, and they come out like nice stones. And then I'm just showing you, we'll use the tacky glue to glue them all in. So we're going to kind of have to do this in layers. So you can see I've got all the gravel and everything glued in there. And I waited till that dried before I moved on to doing this. It was just like an hour. And then I came back and went to the foam. And you can see that they're a good stone shape now after I shook them into the can. And then I'm just going to stage these on here and glue them on. And do it in probably here 3 layers. On these other tall walls, 2 layers. So we'll see what it looks like here in a sec. There we go. This is after I put the first layer down. So I kind of found they're all about the same size. That's why I wanted to cut them similar size. They just stack better that way. There's a couple smaller ones in there. And then start gluing a second layer over top. Like I said, 2 high on the rectangles, and I went 3 high on the gateway. So this is after I've added the second layer. You can see I got some nice height on it. And then I got 2 more piles here, which I'm going to add the third layer onto there. This is for the gateway, so it's going to be a little bit taller than the other wall pieces. That's why I wanted to add a third layer in there. So this is after it's all completed. And then I went to the multi-surface craft paint. I did certainly paint this whole process in stages. I kind of built some and then sealed it in with the paint, and then built some more and sealed it in. You'll see as we go along, I had to do the paint job in stages. So now I'm taking a look at working out how I'm going to build the height, the frame around it. And I kind of wanted to have spikes sticking out of the corners, as well as the ones that I'm going to have sticking out the front. So I had to carve the ends of these, and we're going to go around all the edges of all these over top. So like this right here. So it's kind of like a small little wall around it, but gaps between them, because that's where we're going to put our sticks and stuff in there for the spikes on the front. So these are the long pieces are for the walls, and then I made shorter ones for the two gateways. So you can see what I've done here. And I just used white tacky glue to glue this stuff together. That's what's great about this willow fencing. It's easy to carve, easy to shape, easy to cut. I mean, dowels take a lot of time longer to cut, so I prefer the willow fencing, but again, if you didn't have anything else, you could use dowels. So then I'm going to cut into the coffee stir sticks, and I'm going to make an inner wall on this gateway. So I kind of just cut them all the same height. I'm going to go across both sides here and glue those in place. Then I decided to do some support beams on there just to give a little strength on these walls, and then two front beams on the front, and then I'm going to put some on the back as well, just right here, just kind of just building the stages of the gate. And then I decided to put some boards in the back. This is going to be the staircases getting up into these towers here. And I'm just going to use some basic steps by just gluing pieces of that balsa wood on there, as I was just showing there in a sec. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the two wall pieces, have like a staircase leading into it. So then I started looking at how I'm going to put the spikes in the front. The great thing about having the foam in the middle is if you sharpen both ends of this, you can shove that right into the foam. Of course, put some white glue on it, and then it sticks really sturdy in place, and it's not going anywhere. And I kind of did a zigzag pattern where I went two high, one down low, so you can see what I've done here. Gone up and down, up and down. So that's kind of what it would look like, opposed to having them all straight on the bottom or all straight on the top. Now you could add more if you want to make it more, even more spikes on it and different lengths, or have some along the bottom. It's really up to you. I just decided to go this route. So then I'm going to build a top to this gateway, and I'm just putting some planks across, and you can see I put some framing above on all the pieces here. This is balsa wood, so it's a little more flat and easy to build the top surface on it. It's a little harder on the on the timbers there, even though I've got similar size willow fencing there. It's a little easier to build off of the balsa wood. So I also demonstrating here, I'm going to need to put a support beam in the center, just because it's a long, especially on the walls, to give it a little more strength. And here we'll see what it looks like. You see I put that support beam in the center. So now we're going to go to that cheap foam, the packing foam, and we're going to kind of just build ourselves some hills. So when we put the drywall compound on it, we can have a variety of texture on the ground, so it looks more realistic than one. You don't want to just put it on a flat surface. It won't look very realistic. So I'm going to cut this foam out, and you can see I put it all around the edges, kind of where the snow would have built up on hills. And it's giving us a good place to put that grass down we want to. We can stick it into that foam. So I pull out my huge miniature little palette knife here, and I'm going to use it to apply this drywall compound. And really what I do is I just scoop up big lumps of it, put it all over the base, and then I just spread it out with that tool. Now, I do recommend you have water. It's a lot easier to move the drywall compound around when you dunk that palette knife in your water there. And then you can push it around easier. Now, don't put too much water in there because it'll get really runny. All right, so this is that broom end. And you can see the very end. You could make this tighter, or I would decide to go with long grass, but if you cut it halfway, you can make little your own little shrubs and stuff like that. So I'm not done exploring using the ends of these brooms I just got that from the dollar store, so it's real cheap, real easy to use. So I just used my pencil and pushed a hole in here, then bunched a bunch of those ends together and put some white glue down the hole there that I just created. And then you just push them in there. And that's all you really need to do. They dry in place, and it's an excellent, if you want to put some tall grass and stuff like that. So it's kind of going to look like a bush with no leaves, which is perfect for this winter terrain what I wanted to do. I do plan on expanding on this, and I wanted something more bulk that I can get lots of bushes and tall grass with, so I figured these broom ends would be perfect. So this is after I've added all those in there. The drywall compound has been added. I did want to mention, you probably noticed that I didn't have the grass in before they did the drywall compound. Put the grass on first before you put the drywall compound down. You don't want to do it the other way around. I kind of started filming it one way, but actually you should put the drywall compound after you've already put the bushes in, because you want to have the foam exposed, right? So then we cover everything with the black craft paint again and seal everything in as I've always done. And as like I said, we're doing this in stages, right? So I can't, I have to paint it now with the real brown and start putting my undertones on there. But I haven't finished building the tops. And the main reason why I'm doing this is because once I seal that off, I won't be able to paint the stones or the bottom of the top. So again, I have to do this in layers. So we're going to paint these base pieces the same way I always do with all the undertones I usually use. I'm going to use bark brown here in a minute. We're going to lighten it up. But I had to paint the bases first before I could start continuing building. So we had to take a stop here and just paint it before I can move on. Now, to me personally, I like painting it all at once. Just build the whole thing and just paint it all at once, even if it's a little bit trickier. But with covering those stones, it would have been impossible. So I would lose all the details of the stones in there. I wouldn't be able to access them once I covered the top. So I had to do the paint first. So then we get the Pablo, the next color, the bright orange. Again, if you follow this channel for a while, you've recognized all these undertones that I always use. So I do plan on making it, like I said, a frost covered. So having this little bit of bright orange on there is going to really stand out. And it's going to contrast between all the grays and whites we're going to add on there, the drab colors, and add a little bit of color underneath. We're going to add some camel. We're going to put that on the tall grass. We're going to put it on the stones. We're going to put it on the cut ends of all these spikes, ends of these timbers. Some of the stones that I added to the base of this, the main gateway. So we're just going to kind of touch this up in a few areas. I touched it a little bit on some of the wood, but very little. Most of that I just left the brown and orange colors. I will move to a smaller brush. We're going to do more finer detail. I'm going to move to that small square brush that I use a lot of. So we're just going to kind of stop here, and I'm going to do a little bit of painting here. Not just tell you, but show you a little bit what I'm painting here. So you can see I just add a little bit on there. We're adding more colors. We're going to add some washes and speed paints and other things to these stones to make them a little more realistic. But I wanted to add that camel on there. It's this pretty well standard color I usually add to lighten up the stones and start turning it into a more stone color and the brown undertones that I originally put on. But you can see that all those hills and waviness of the drywall compound really adds a lot of texture to the ground and makes the ground a lot more realistic than if you just slapped it on a flat surface. It would be too smooth and wouldn't look real. Most surfaces are uneven, so that's what you're trying to capture here, especially in the snow terrain that we're doing. So adding some more camel to the tall grass, just trying to lighten it up. I'm going to add white to it eventually, so it looks like there's snow or frost on it. But again, just showing you all the things that I'm going to paint with the camel. We're just trying to lighten up some of the stuff on here and add that undertone on there. But we're not going to put it every one here, just more of the stones and the cut pieces of wood. And you can see how I put that on there. I don't really slap the paint on. It's kind of like a dry brush, but with a really small brush. So it's kind of like a dry brush, but in a finer, detailed version. Actually, I've done some of my oak and iron ships that way too, with a small brush, and just dry brushed it with a really tiny brush. So now that I've got all that camel put down, you can see it's pretty basic right now. It doesn't look much like stone, so we're going to add some other colors. So we got skeleton horde here, serpent serpia, and Agrax Earthshader is the other one, Earthshade there. So those are all your standard, I call them grunge colors, the grunge team, dirtying things up. And then you got Drake Tooth, that's a lighter white, then Mummy Robe, and Greyland Gray. So we're going to add a little bit on the stones as well, just to add a little different colors in there. Stones come in many colors, and that's what I want to capture with all these different washes and speed paints. So we're going to use those in all these stones to add those colors, and I'll show you in a sec here what it looks like when we're done. So you can see it's got a lot more realistic look to them than when we just had the camel on it. And I want them to be a little bit brighter so you can actually see them. So what's the point of doing all these details if you can't even see it, right? So I wanted to make sure you could see it through the timbers there. And I'd contemplated maybe actually painting the stones before I put the wooden wall around it. I could have done it that way to even put more detail on it. But I figured this was good enough. So now we're going to move into making the gray color. So all the wooden timber would be kind of gray. So we got blue there. We get ultramarine blue. We got black and white. And we're just kind of kind of mix up different grays. I also used a little bit of Drake tooth in there too, so I had different colors I can go with. And really, once I've done adding all the grays and stuff to the wood, I went back with the white paint. And you can see I got a pretty ratty brush that I use for this. And this is kind of adding, looks like frost or a little bit of snow in certain areas on the wood timbers. So yeah, even though I haven't put the top on, I went ahead and did quite a bit of detail on the bottom. Because you have to get this all done before I seal everything up with adding the top layer onto it. So this is a lot of extra detail. It took a little while to get around everything and get everything just the way I liked it. So it looked like frost. I didn't want to make it too white because it's not like completely covered, but just enough to hit everything in here so it looks like it's got a little bit of white frost on everything. So I did that for every single piece and all the spikes, all the wood areas, and added that extra white on there. So this is after I've completed that. You can see I've kind of touched all the long grasses, and then we started really getting that bases in good shape. So this is what I'm going to use for the top. These are coffee stir sticks, and I just kind of measured out what size I need, and frankly, I just went to each one and just cut out a whole ton of paneling. Now, not all of them, unfortunately, are the same size because I didn't make them exactly the same, but so I actually couldn't just cut them all out for everything. I had to have two different sizes. So you see I have a pile of coffee stir sticks. I kind of cut the ends off them already. And I just, actually what I do is I just take one that I measured out, and then I use that as a measuring tool for all the other ones I cut out. So I just use my pair of scissors, and these coffee stir sticks are nice and thin, so you can just snip away and get a ton of them rapidly cut. So then I decided to paint the bottoms, because you can't see it. Once I glue it on there, you won't be able to see it, but I wanted to have something on there. So I just used some speed paints and just painted the bottoms of it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't want it to look like a coffee stir stick, essentially. I just wanted a darker color on there. And then once I was done that, I rapidly glued them all on there and got them done. So we have nice tops for everything. So you can see it's all dark underneath. You can't even tell. It's perfect. And that's what I was going for. So now I decided to do a track system on the tops of these. And why I want to do a track system is I want to build a higher wall on there, but make it easier to glue it on. So this is a track system on this one I've completed already. So you can see how I did it. And then I took the coffee stir stick and actually used this as a guide. So I pushed it in between there so it just fits, and then I tightened it. And let it dry that way, so it actually just fits those sticks perfectly. So it's going to make it a lot easier to glue the wall together. So this is the wall, and you can I put a support beam on it as well, but I use that track system to glue it on there, and which I've done on all the pieces. So that's how I'm going to glue the wall on top of these areas. I like this track system. It worked out good. It was easy to glue the walls in. I think it was harder to put the tracks down than it was actually to glue the walls after I did it. And actually cutting all those coffee stir sticks, it did take some time. And you can see I had a couple of leftovers from the bottoms. Some of them got oddball colors. I'm going to paint it all black anyway, so it doesn't really matter. I didn't want to waste any coffee stir sticks. Let's just put them all on there. So this is after I added a little wall to the middle piece too as well, looking like a little bit of a taller area. And you can see that I've completed all the walls now. Glued all those coffee stir sticks in place, and we're in really good shape. So now we're going to go to, well, you know what, the pure black again. And now it's a little trickier because we have painted areas and non-painted areas. That's why I like to paint it all at once, but I knew I had to do it in these stages. So this got a little trickier. I added all these paints on here. I'm not going to go through the technique again because this is real brown, bark brown, Pablo, camel, all the same colors we just used, and matte black, white, and that's Drake tooth to add those gray colors to match the timbers below. So this is essentially after I sped through it all and we've painted everything, but I used the same techniques I did for the bottom for the top. It's the same thing, so it all matches. But again, I had to paint it this way, which was unfortunate. I'd rather it just, like I said, paint it all at once. So just showing you what they look like all completed, but we're not quite done yet. We're now going to move into the snow adding stage. So this is that white sand filler, and you get it in at Michael's, but it's in the section where you have like decorative vases and stuff, and you put fake flowers in, and that's where you find that they have like a whole counter with those kind of stuff in it, different colors. So I'm just going to use the white tacky glue. I actually put quite a generous amount on there. I didn't actually film me putting the glue on there, but I actually didn't even use the brush. I was going to use the brush to spread it out. I decided just to use the end of the glue bottle, and I just made it so you couldn't even see the base. So lots of on there. And I even put some up top where I was going to put all this filler, this white filler. It looks like great snow. I actually really love this sand. It looks, well, it's called filler, but essentially it's white sand. And sometimes it even looks like sugar, but it has a little bit of a glitter to it. You can't see on the camera here. So it actually looks like real snow. Being here in Canada, I get to see a lot of real snow. So I'm actually pretty impressed on how that stuff works. So then I just got some RV painter tufts here. Again, you could have cut that broom end into smaller bits and use that for tufts. And I'm just going to glue those tufts down, and then we're going to go and do a final paint job with some white. I actually started with that matte white, and I was thinking, why am I using this Fanatic expensive paint? I ended up just going to Folk Art white titanium paint, and it worked just fine. So I think I'm just going to skip using that expensive paint from now on and just use the titanium Folk Art paint. So half of this was painted with the expensive paint, and half of it was filled in with the cheaper Folk Art white titanium paint. And you can't even tell. So once that sand dries, it does look a little clear, and there's certain patches. That's why you have to go back with a little bit of white paint, and you're kind of dry brushing it on to the snow, and that's what really gives you that final snow look. That, it's kind of brighter in certain areas, like maybe the snow is accumulated in certain areas more than others. I wanted to add some to the top to make it look more realistic, and because there would be snow on the top as well. And then in my Army Painter box, they actually gave us a miniature in there, a free miniature. And it was like a fantasy one. So I saw, it's perfect for this. So I just added a little snow base to it, and I just added that fantasy element to the terrain. I just figured I'd paint them along while I got it. So let's look at the game table. We got Benjamin Church here, and his raiders trying to attack this small French fort. It's kind of this fortification walls. That could be an abandoned fort, whatever you want it to be. Like I said, it's a really versatile piece of terrain that you could pretty well use for anything, really. I got my native warriors on here, King Philip, and we got a French commander in the main gatehouse here. Just so you know, all these miniatures, some of these are new and old miniatures from Firelock Games for Blood and Plunder. Most of these are from the Fire on the Frontier expansion they had. So if you're just wondering where most of these miniatures came from. So that's pretty much it for this episode. I do plan on doing some more snow terrain. Again, like I said, it's for a bigger project that I'm working on, and I look forward to working on those. So that's it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.